growth.
Oh, Lewis.
It is when
It's nature.
it is when it's weaponized.
This blind guy's on
When
something.
it's weaponized.
Yeah.
Are you
Yo,
serious?
Bond.
What?
That was my angler brother.
Everybody on my friends list in 494. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Yours?
He lied. He didn't even drop it.
Yeah, I did.
Lies. I'll believe it when I see it on the ground.
Hey guys, Bond Servant here, coming at you with a TOA 300 expert guide, no insanity. I ran this with 3 random Ironmen, never met them before. It was just kind of spontaneous. At like 3 in the morning, I was a little tired. I saw they were running like a 150 or 160 and offered to carry them through their first 300 expert. And I said, yeah, so ran it. So if you pay attention here, if you, I ran too early there, but if you go ahead and watch back the video, I did it right the first time. You want to be standing up on that first tile, and as soon as the retracting arm with the spike closest to you starts to retract, that's your cue to run forward without taking damage. On the way in, it doesn't really matter. That's why you see me not really carrying, because it's late and I have way too many supplies for this raid anyways. Like there, if you're on the green, you'll take damage too, but like I said, on the way in, not a big deal. Ideally, you don't want to take any, but there it started retracting. My true tile was already over there, so I was good to go. So you get 100. Sorry if you can hear people talking in the background. I was in a Discord call while recording this, and I had switched my mic, so it didn't actually record me talking. So I've just turned down the conversation because you can't hear me talking in it anyways, and figured I'd record this voiceover because it's a good showcase that even as an Ironman with minimal gear, you can do this raid. So you want a BGS to start, you only have to hit 30. At that point, it's pointless. I hit 27, so it's not really worth going for more, but you'll see I do later in the raid. So you want to be standing over where I am for the start of this fight, because the first puzzle solve is easiest from this side, and there's almost never any poison where I am. When the projectile reaches peak flight and explodes, that's your cue to switch your prayer. And you want to be watching right by the crease of his elbow for the blood magic attack. That's your cue to switch prayer. So I didn't take any damage. If you notice, they did, and I didn't. And I have enough time to switch my prayer still. So it's always whenever you see that blood magic attack by the crease of his elbow, just in front of it, it's either blood orbs are going to spawn or he's going to blood barrage you. So you want to stay spread out in this room. But there is enough room over on my side for the whole team to be there and spread out. You can see I'm prayer flicking rigor. You want to, so here I just want to show you, if I was standing by that red X closest to me, pushed it, and shot it when it got to the second red X, that would be the proper solve. So here I do it wrong, I'm tired, and I realize it, and so I missed my prayer just to commit so these guys know where to go, because it was, the solve was pretty ragged, so we had to run through the poison. But yeah, there's always a correct solve, so. At this point, after this set of waves, all of the poison's going to be gone in the upper front area, and that's exactly where you want to stand for the next puzzle solve. So here, if you follow those red X's, that would have been the correct pathing to not take any damage here. I might have been watching them or something, I'm not sure. Or just tired, as I said. Anyhow, you'll see I'm not even prayer flicking that much. I brought in way too many restores for the raid. I was planning on just camping prayer initially. And then I figured, you know what, I might as well try and show at least the elements for each room for a learner video with these 3 Ironmen. So here, if you were standing in that upper middle area, like I said, where all that poison was, that's the easiest solve for the second puzzle usually. Or on the far side. So there is a solve still on my side. I could have solved it from there too. So you're good from anywhere, but it's the quickest and fastest places if you want to speed run and whatnot. So you'll see here I go in and I hit big on the first BGS, so I figure what the hell, I'll go in again because I have all my gear on. Didn't hit anything. wasn't needed, but I figured, you know what, it'll help these 3 Ironmen stay alive, and that'll help me because keeping their DPS will help me get through the room faster. And keeping all our points alive gives everybody a better chance at a purple. So you'll see how I have my camera oriented in this room. It just makes doing the waves really easy. And I like standing in this corner tile here. I do a lot of solo raiding, and you can see it's really easy to avoid the orbs. You just kind of run like a little box around them. And Zabak can never chomp you standing on this tile, so. And poison will never land on you if you're standing on that tile in a solo either. Never ever. So, it's pretty good. And that's the end of Zabak. Pretty easy room when you're running upset stomach to run it first and just knock it out of the way. Then you do Kefri second. So here, if you path around the tile properly, it won't do that, but I didn't really mind. Wasn't gonna really kill my time that much. So here you can one tick the obelisks standing even maybe 1 tile back further from where I am, and that way it keeps you out of that middle area where all those boulders are falling, so they're not falling on me. If you really want to, you can put protect range on, and then the scarabs ranging you won't damage you either, but I wasn't too worried about it. I was going to show this here, but he was going to do it, so I figured I'd show this here, and I just sped it up because it's pretty straightforward. You can just duck behind that and attack them. It'll range the other guy sometimes. You can just put on protect from range, though. This saves me prayer points and damage. Just wait for them to come through, and you can see I switched off my Blood Fury to save the charges on it. So here, if you watch, they're just matching tiles. Pretty simple. Put my Blood Fury back on before the start of the room, but I just wanted to make sure that they knew how to deal with the it's called Blowing Mud. That's the invocation where Kefri will throw like dung out in a line, but 2 people get dunged at the same time with that invocation. So you'll see we're going to form a cage where those 2 marked tiles are close together, the 2 yellow tiles, in just a moment. And the purpose of doing this is to trap the melee scarab in there when it spawns, so we don't have to protect for melee. Landed BGS. Is it really necessary to BGS Kefri? No. But was it worth it with me being with 3 Ironmen? Yeah. So happy to land it. I wouldn't BGS again after the first shield phase. It's not really worth it at that point. You're better off just saving your specs to dump into the Mage Scarab, because you want to deal as much damage to the Mage Scarab as quickly as possible to avoid the DPS check, because it can really do some damage, and especially if the range Scarab is up, because you need to have your range pair up with the range Scarab up, but when the Mage DPS checks you, you need Mage pair up, so you're kind of in a pickle there. So you just dump all your Fang specs into the Mage Scarab, down them, and then save them for if you have a yellow Karis to heal you, and it's really nice using your yellow Karis in this room because it'll restore your run energy near the end of the room. So especially in solo raids, you use a lot more run energy running from side to side. That's why this raid is really nice in duo, because you can split the rooms and the damage. So raids go a lot faster and they're a lot easier. 4-man's pretty nice too. Above that it gets a bit chaotic, but trio is still okay too. Like in this room you can kind of split it one north, one south, and one east. And you always form the cage in this room. Unless you're speed running, then like in an 8-man, guys will just trap themselves in the cage and just go nuts. Or right where my character's standing, they'll just stack tiles on that corner tile and ignore everything else is where they usually do it, actually. And then in the cage. But so that's the Mage Scarab, the blue one there. So you'll see I start dumping my Fang Specs in because I'm noodling there, but hit a decent one. So you can see it stayed until it hit its set interval, but I hit over 40 right at the end there. But if you hit over 40, like I just did there, it'll teleport. See how it teleported a lot quicker there? So that's why it teleports quicker if you didn't know. 40 or above, it'll automatically teleport to the next location. The locations remain the same. It starts in the corner where I am, then the next corner, then back over where I am in the middle area, and then over in the northeastern corner. So you want to take out this melee scarab with Mage, and you kill it because it will heal Kefri. So they're just staying on melee because I have the Shadow, which just absolutely destroys in this raid, so they don't need to bother switching their gear because I'll have it down before they are even able to deal any damage to the melee scarab. So pretty well anyways, so it's not worth. So that's why they stayed melee. So you'll notice I'm wearing full Torva, but I attack these dark colored eggs because those are the ones that spawn the agile scarabs in the room. And I'm doing that because it'll just make the room easier for the Ironmen, and they'll go through less supplies, which ultimately makes the room easier for me if they stay alive. So, but usually if you're soloing and you're wearing full Bandos or better, you don't need to have your range prayer up if the range scarab is down, because if you're wearing a Blood Fury, it'll keep you going. And if you really want to conserve your prayer, which you should learn how to do because it's really not that hard, is you should prayer flick piety in this room. But like I said, 3 in the morning I was tired. I was raiding pretty complacent. Like right here, I should have instantly went over with him and just DD'd with him and set this up properly. But for a little while, I just kind of ignore that fact and just dump my Fang Specs and hope he figures out his issues here on this side. So this now I commit to DDing with him to finish it off, but now he ends up doing his own thing. So this is where at the end when Kefri doesn't have a shield, that's why the health bar looked different. That's where you want to dump all your Fang Specs. You can see Sublime there really wants me to raid with him because I was supposed to, but he was in a raid and I saw these guys standing there, so I figured I'd he's not being too nice to me there, but I did tell him I was going to raid with him, but I figured I'd, instead of raiding with 7 other guys that know how to do the raid and are seeking a purple, I'd teach these guys how to do some experts and get after the purples, you know? Do my good deed of the day. So you can read here what I'm talking about with these guys if you really want to know why I'm doing the pathing. I'm explaining it there, so I'll save my breath now. But yeah, ideally outside of that, you want to look in the top left corner for the pathing of the rooms depending on what path leveling invocation you're running, and that will ultimately decide what path you should be taking. So, like for Akka, every 2 levels is an extra memory, so, and in Kefri, the tick rate increases, and then Baba gets a lot meaner too. The speed of the room also increases. So, and Zabak is the distance between the waves decreases, and his speed of his attacks increases. You know what? I actually, if you want a good laugh, I recommend everybody tries a level 4 Zabak. Go ahead and give that a go. But yeah, so I recommend if you're new to this, you start Zabak first. Upset Stomach is a free invocation at that point if you do what I told you. But otherwise, start in this room. Start Baba's room. Baba start is the next best start because if you pre-pot everything, brew, restore, stamina, anti-venom, combat, and then angler, and a range pot too, you'll fly through this. And then you'll knock Baba out of the way, and then do Kefri second, and then you could do Zabak, and then you could do Akka or Akka Zabak. So this room here, when you're doing this room, you want to be, so when they're all glowing red like that, that's the DD. So everybody needs to stand on each other because it's just easier when you're in a group than running around curing everyone. But if you're in a duo, then you just right click the neutralizing potion and use it. And that's easier than trying to run to each other and running back and forth and missing each other. But in a group, everybody just runs to an area where there's no poison, and then you just spam click the potion because, as you can see, you have like 100 doses. I still have 91 after spam clicking it there. So, and then you just look where the glowing red skulls are otherwise. And so you see I typed V and kind of ran past everybody so they could see, but you always want to keep your eye on the chat box anyways for the calls. And you can see the glowing blue monkey. I have that tagged. That's the volatile, and he dealt with it right. He let it get close to him and then ran away from it, so it would explode away from him. But yeah, your priority in this room is killing the mages and rangers first, so you can camp, protect melee against the thralls from the shamans and the red monkeys. The blue monkeys, technically it's a mage-based melee, but you only pray melee when you're fighting the shaman after it has spawned 4 of its thralls, because once it's spawned 4 of its thralls, that's when it starts attacking you. So it's a good idea to have chins or barrage. No Monkey says barrage is trolling in here, but really you should have ancients because blood barrage is great in this raid. Unless you're No Monkey, then you'll bring thralls. But it's nice not having a bunch of thralls in the raid, especially if you're in a group, because then it keeps the raid a lot cleaner and you can see things like in Wardens when skulls happen. And in this room, having freezes is really nice too. You freeze the poison monkeys, like right there, like he did. But yeah, you just blood barrage off the stacks and heal up, and that's a good way to heal without actually going through your supplies that much. So yeah, priority in this room is mage and rangers, so you can camp melee prey. And then if they're not frozen, you want to freeze the poison monkeys. Then you want to kill the shamans so they stop spawning the thralls, because, and you don't want to let a big thrall stack of thralls attack you because they'll start reducing your prayer. So if there is, and you don't want the shamans attacking people, so you want to kind of eliminate them once you start getting a stack of more than 4 around you. And then after that, once you've eliminated the shamans, you want to get rid of the poison monkeys, so they're not putting poison everywhere in the room. And yeah, that's basically it. And if you really want to know when it's over, if you look on the right side of my screen, if you're on RuneLight, it gives you a list of the wave order, which is the same every raid, so you know where you are and when the room is going to be over. This area of the raid can be nice sometimes when you're salted, because you'll never run out of run in the room, and all of your combat styles will be increased as well, so it's pretty nice. And then if you ever have to brew, you'll stay salted. So here I was just explaining to them what to do as I was going to red X, which if you don't know how to do, I recommend you learn it. Honestly, just do it. It's so easy to do, and if you know how to do it and you do it right, you don't have to use any prayer in this room at all, essentially, which is really nice. That's in a solo anyways. In a group, something will likely happen, and you'll have to use prayer, but red X is a great prayer conservation method, so you'll see how I do it here. I end up messing it up though, which you'll see. So you want to BGS spec at the start, and then Fang hit, and then walk 3 tiles, attack Baba, walk 2 tiles, and then you can turn your prayer off and you can prayer flick. So I went to do that and missed. And now I'm trying to save it, and no, it's not happening. Yeah. So now I let them know it's done, so just back to doing Baba the way they know. But you'll end up seeing when I'm just taking way too much unnecessary damage in this room. When baboons spawn in this room, you want to kill them right away, because if you notice the sarcophaguses standing up along the sides of the room, they're going to try and destroy those, and when those are destroyed, if you're running the invocation, they're going to shoot blood magic spells, and they kind of just go everywhere. It's random. It's really hard to dodge, and it'll deal damage to you based on how much prayer you have, and it can really hurt if you're low on prayer. So there I just Karis healed to overheal, just to make sure I stay alive for these guys. And in this room, you want to run the plugin opponent information and have it at least on both or percentage. Because when Baba reaches 66, which she is about to, and 33, that's why I'm calling gap, to let them know to get out of the middle. That's when boulder phase triggers, which is about to happen once they hit Baba here right now. So I want you to watch the left side of this screen and watch what he does here. He clicks the boulder first, which pulls him up instead of pathing directly across, and that's what ends up happening to him there. He ends up falling in the hole. So that's the correct tile that he should have been standing on. So if you look at the health bars on the rocks, one of them is full and one of them is half. So the one that's full, 2 people can stand there, and the one that's half, only 1. So I BGS back there again to speed up the room for us, because I didn't really land one at the beginning, so. Baboons spawn, so we gotta take them out. And if you notice, when they die, they're going to drop bananas, which if you step on the banana, it'll stun you. Your guy won't slip on the banana, and it'll deal 18 damage, and you can't move. So in boulder phase, you really want to keep an eye out for them, because you'll end up getting stuck and then slammed by the boulder, likely into the equipment. So when that attack happens there, the black slam attack on the ground, you'll see he dealt with it right. Your fastest way to leave is to run diagonally away from it. So here, he takes sarcophagus. The guy on the side there stood directly on the tile in front of the sarcophagus, which that's your other option if you can't make it to one of the boulders in the room when Baba throws the rock. Because standing directly in front of the sarcophagus will, I don't know that it halves the damage, but it will greatly negate the damage you will otherwise take from the throw, which would likely kill you otherwise. Not ideal, you don't want to do that if you can make it to a rock, because it'll damage the sarcophagus, but it'll keep you from dying. So you'll see here, this is how the guy that fell in the hole should have ran. If you have to, you run backwards first and then across. But ideally, if the whole team is there, you don't have to do this at all, because you just run sideways first. And once you make it to the correct path, after that, you red click the correct boulder first, and then yellow click the correct path, and just repeat. This conversation here was just from a Discord call I was in.
Cheering gear.
Yes, both of y'all now.
Cheering gear. No, I'm pretty sure you can do it, dude.
Is it
Good spelling there.
You could do it type shit. Should I just keep doing 165 until hopefully do a drop and then upgrade gear, or?
I would move up in mechanics.
So I left that conversation in there, excuse the language, but for the exact point that he was saying there about you should move up in higher mechanics, which is partly why I offered to do this for these guys, because that's what'll make you better and able to run them, is by running them and learning the mechanics. So he's absolutely right. BF means butterfly, which if you don't know how to butterfly, you should definitely learn, because Akka, if you don't know how to butterfly, is hands down the hardest room in this raid, just because of the amount of chip damage that Akka does when you need to be protecting from melee. So if you don't know how to butterfly, your best damage is going to be coming from when you're not in the melee phase, because you're going to be healing a lot in the melee phase. So then you can't really get the damage from the shadow, which is the highest damage in this raid. So butterfly is the technique you need to learn most. Then you should learn how to red X, and then this raid is free. So free. So you're going to watch me butterfly here, which is really easy, honestly. It's very, very easy to do. All you need to do is use the plug-in tile indicator, and you can see that's the blue tile there, which is my true tile, which means that's where the game is actually registering that my character is. So when your true tile makes it to a tile, that's your cue to click the next tile or to click Akka. So you'll see what I'm doing here. If you really want me to post in the comment section, I'll make a butterfly guide. But I'm pretty sure at this point in the guide with them, I ended up putting music on. So yeah, I either have to completely deafen this to get rid of the music, which it still won't in my editing software, which I figured, you know what, I'd rather at least leave the game sounds on, so that for educational purposes you can hear how to do the raid. And the music was enjoyable. So as always, no monetization sought for this. Monetization. Monetization. Man, oh man, what a tongue twister that is for me right now. Monetization, there you go. No monetization sought for this video, so enjoy. Figured I'd leave it as it is, kind of uncut, talking with these guys, just for the authenticity of it. This is kind of funny. Stay vigilant is an invocation that makes Akka switch at a random interval instead of set intervals, which is why you want to learn butterflying.
Dude, what?
What happened?
I can feel my feet, I'm feeling, know what
you're glowing white like that, you either want to be DD'd, which means standing directly on top of somebody else, or you want to be standing away from them. It'll explode in north, east, south, west directions of about 5 to 6 tiles, I believe. And you don't want to get hit by that. If you're black, you don't want to move because you'll drop bombs everywhere. And this memory phase and how to do it, I explained directly before this to them. You can go back and read it if you want. Pretty simple if you have your game sounds on. I moved because I kind of figured a special was about to happen just from doing the raid enough. So if I was black, I didn't want to be standing directly on them because then I wouldn't be able to move, and the shadow was about to spawn, so I need to move. Which I really didn't need to because ultimately we were going to go red, but just having good behaviors is good in the raid to avoid damaging you and your teammates. So when Akka switches styles that you have to pray, you want to wait until the style that he attacks with as he's switching hits you, because it's still the last style. Once it switches, then you switch your prayer. That's a way to avoid damage when he's switching. I move away in ranged, again, just so that I'm away for any of the special attacks already. Like right now, it goes white, I'm already away from everyone, and I can just stay on damage. So at this point, you want to be using Bofa or your best range DPS. You always want to be blowpiping the shadows, because they don't have as much defense as Akka, and the blowpipe is the fastest rate of fire, fastest projectile. And if you don't have yellow carriers, you can use the blowpipe specs to heal yourself, but the blowpipe will always be the fastest way to take out the shadows if you don't have a Tumikin Shadow. So as I have Tumikin Shadow, I switch to that, and I'm waiting for them to move to start the butterfly. So I just started anyways, but I didn't want to move towards them because even if Akka isn't targeting you when he swings, when you have to be protecting from melee, it'll do chip damage in an area of effect style to people that are also around you. I move away for the white so it doesn't damage anybody else. I get ready to carry us up, but then I switch to mage because he switched. And then I carry us over here, I believe. No, I just go straight into butterfly. So when you're black, it drops bombs like this, but if you're butterflying, you can just keep butterflying as normal. And if you do it correctly, you won't take damage from any of the bomb orbs if you're using the correct butterfly tiles. And they're standing in the correct locations. But the problem with standing in the middle where that guy is if Akka triggers a special attack when he's standing up there, he'll switch and target the person standing up in the middle. So it's actually better to stand out near the tips, the pointy ends of the compass, than in the middle. Unless there's going to be 4 memories fast, and you're slow at getting to the middle, then you could stand there, but... So here, this is a DPS check. I can tell by the DPS check timer there, the hourglass. So I tell them to heal, because I know they're going to get chonked here. So the yellow tiles there signify the border. And when he raises his lance, it's my cue. When he goes down, I click over, and then I can tile skip the DPS check. And that's the correct way to do that, if you're not butterflying in solo. Or if you're not going to meet the timer for the hourglass, you need to run to one side of the yellow tile border and get ready to click to the opposite tile diagonally of it. Otherwise, be ready to heal up if you can't do that, or overheal. I had some latency there, and I think the other guy followed me, or maybe he had latency as well. Maybe it was the server. gear, I just move away from him. The phase that we're about to enter, once Akka loses all of his health here, he ends up regenerating. I'm not sure what percent of his health it is. It's probably going to be like 400 and some health or something. That's how many people are in the raid, maybe more. Yeah, likely, maybe it's 400 as a solo, so maybe it'll be like 1200 right now. We'll end up finding out. But it's going to summon all these white bubbles everywhere. And if the invocation level is 300, Protect from Magic will still lower the damage, but anything higher than that, don't use that. You can just use the Blue Heart Redemption to save you if you don't have Yellow Karis. If you have Yellow Karis, I actually recommend not running that and just using your Yellow Karis to heal you. And that's why having Adrenaline out in this phase is great, and doing Akka last is really nice, because you can sip your Adrenaline now, and you'll end up being able to get 3 overheals with your Yellow Karis in this phase, and then afterwards you can go into Wardens and dump your BGS specs and Scepter specs on the Obelisk, which, if you were reading earlier, I believe I already told them. So they all ended up going down, so now it's up to me, which, if you're paying attention and you have some experience in this raid, it's actually not so hard to not take damage. As long as you're not standing near the yellow tile borderlines where all the bubbles are spawning, because that's where they like to kind of converge on you when they spawn and stack you out. So the very middle area of the room is actually the easiest location to avoid dodging them. And if you're doing what I'm doing in the corner areas, it's not so bad. So you'll see I can just kind of follow this orb in the safe tiles. Just take your time, it's not so bad. I just start dumping Fang specs because I'm confident that I'm not going to get taken down. And I end up getting hit, so I get ready to throw up the Blue Heart. Get hit again. And I put it up here. So the Blue Heart, once I get low enough, it'll proc and it'll give me health, but it'll take all of my prayer. And that's why I don't run it, because it takes all of your prayer. So then if it ends up proccing and you have another orb coming at you and you don't have anything to heal with other than your Yellow Karis, you can't until you have 3 prayer pot sips, or 2, depending on your levels. And so here we go, now we're into Wardens. And it's kind of going to explain itself here. I'm not going to have to say a whole lot because I'm going to explain it to these guys. So, yeah, just watch how I explain it to them. But a tip that I could give that I'm not directly giving them here is at this point in the raid, if you're not running D-High, you always want to have life, so you have Ambrosias. And you want to try to only use your Nectars and Tears for the Obelisk phase, and for the part when the Warden is going to jump out here. If you really have to, you can use an Ambrosian in that part, because honestly, Skulls will likely be harder for you in the Skull phase when the Warden pops out than the Warden fight if you're not running Insanity. So, but you want to save it for P4, which is the very last phase of the Warden fight. That's when you want to save your Ambrosia sips, because there's going to be lightning strikes everywhere and unsafe tiles to be standing on everywhere. So yeah, if you want, if you were listening to me talk and you didn't catch what I was typing there, go back, watch it again. And if you don't have any of these tiles marked on your own, I recommend you mark them and use them, because they're great, as you'll see. Might take you a little bit to get used to using them if you're doing something else, but it's really, really nice. So I'm BGSing for them. I landed my BGS, so I just threw on my mage gear. I didn't bother bringing the scepter, but I'm just saving my specs for specs on the core. Which is what the adrenaline is really for in the raid. To help you get through the warden when it pops out, that phase. Because you can go through so many supplies, because it doesn't matter if you're praying the right prayer, you're going to be taking chip damage. For the most part. And you want to get through this phase as fast as you can as well, which is why I dumped the BGS spec. Because you're going to be constantly taking these two attacks. The one where you need to be spread out, and the one where we all need to stand on each other. Over and over again until this obelisk goes down. So me using the BGS spec lowered the defense of the obelisk so that their ranged attacks will end up dealing more damage. And my shadow's going to melt it no matter what, so... Which I need to say, disclaimer, the Torva in Shadow and Ancestral is not mine. So there, when it turns your prayer off, there's going to be 3 different projectiles flying. The blue orb is the magic attack, the red sword is the melee attack, and then if it's the white arrow, it's the ranged attack. So this is here where you want to drink your adrenaline, that's why I typed adrenaline sip to them, and it's going to reduce the amount your special attack costs, and Dragon Dagger is the best. You always want to use Dragon Dagger here. So the first time, it's going to be 5 Dragon Dagger specs if you're tick perfect, 5 hits, and then BGS smack after that. And if everybody that's in the raid is able to do that, the second time it's going to be 7 hits, so 7 Dragon Dagger specs if you have enough spec. If you don't, when you run out of Dragon Dagger specs, Karis smack. Or if you have a Rapier or a Tent Whip, you could use that until you make it to the 7th hit, and then BGS smack. I'm telling them to heal because you always want to be over healed in case skulls start, because if you lag when skulls start, you're going to take a lot of damage unless you're really, really lucky. So here I know he's going down, so I switch into my gear and throw Piety up and I get ready. So I'm tick perfect, so I'm going to be able to get 7 Dragon Dagger specs in, and then I'm going to BGS smack. So for the next phase, depending on the invocation level you're running and how much health he has, the next time if the core was to pop out, if you were to make it that far, you would go for 9 or 10 hits, depending on the invocation level, and then BGS smack. And while you're doing this, it alternates the combat style you need to attack with. It starts mage, then after the first core, it's range, and it just switches. You almost got stacked out there. So when you get hit by the special attacks, it turns off your prayer, and he got hit by one of the warden's attacks at the same time. It doesn't allow you to pray defensively for, I believe it's 2 to 3 ticks after getting hit by a special attack. You just tile skip them. So here at the start of this phase, if you have spec, you would want to dump BGS specs, or if you're running Shadow, you could use a Curse Scepter and dump those specs to lower the defense. I don't have any specs, so I just go straight into Shadow DPS. And this, once you've actually done it, because getting here takes a really long time. This raid is a really long raid. Unless you run absolutely nothing just to get here, like speed runs just to get practice here, you could do that. And this part's super easy once you just know the pattern you need to walk, because without Insanity you start on this right tile every time. And then those tiles that I have marked there, the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth one is just, I did that from memory, and there isn't actually a fifth one, but I just left it there because I thought it would be funny and people would ask me why it's there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, if you're soloing, that's where you want to stand when these skulls, these cores pop out here. If you're standing on those tiles when you're solo, or if you're the last person left in group, I've run so many solos that I didn't realize it was going to be a 2-hit there. I was really tired. So, but you'll see that I do it the correct way the next time in group, how to deal with skulls if you're alone on one side. You'll see. But anyways, yeah, for the first one, you would stand at number 1, second one 2, the third one 3, the next one 4. And that's important because if you're running Insanity, you're not going to have enough time to hit all of the skulls if you're not already standing there when they land. And it would be the same thing, vice versa, if you wanted to run it on the right-hand side. You could flip it exactly opposite. But like I'm standing there when the skull lands is how you need to be. And that there is how you properly deal with the skulls if you're in a group and you're alone on one side. But yeah, Insanity really isn't that bad until you get to P4. As long as you have a computer that can handle Insanity, everything that's going on. But yeah, it's just a matter of your focus in this raid should be avoiding taking damage. And the more you can do that, the more damage you're going to be able to deal. So always, at this part of the fight, focus your tile movement over everything else. And then heal or restore your prayer. And you always want to have enough prayer to be able to use your yellow Karis spec if anything happens. So I don't have one currently because I used it in the last phase in Aka's room to clutch up. But if you don't use Adrenaline for that, then you would use your first dose when the core pops out for P2. This is P3. And then when P4 starts, right before P4 starts, you want to sip your Adrenaline and go in for BGS specs or Scepter, and then save your remaining spec for yellow Karaseals. Because his defense is going to reset when you make it to P4. And so the reason why I tanked the side of the obelisk that I did, not the other side, is because if you tank the opposite side, you're going to be fighting a different warden. And then when you make it to this part of the raid, it's not going to be Zabak and Baba that are there attacking you. It's going to be Akka and Kefri, and you don't want that. One of the really nice things about not having a high-level Baba is it will affect the level that these boulders are falling at you. So Insanity will speed it up, but if you have a really high level Baba, they're going to be falling really fast. But it's the same thing for how fast Zabak is attacking you at this point. So take your pick when you start running higher invos. Which is another reason why doing Akka last is really nice, because it really doesn't matter if he's a really high level. It won't affect the raid. You don't want a high level Kefri though, because it's just a really big pain, because the mud attacks are happening so fast that if people end up dying, it can become a pain to clutch up if you're losing tiles in the room really fast. So at this point, when the health regenerates is when the defense regenerates. So I go in for BGS specs for them. I don't end up landing any, but it was the thought that counted, right? But that's why Adrenaline's really nice for that part, because you could get 4 BGS specs there, or 4 Scepter specs. Or when you're running higher invos, you could just dump 1 or 2, and then you'll end up having spec for a Karaseal if you're running D-High. That's why the light bearer is so huge in this raid, because of the spec regeneration. So you can see, this really is not hard. You can see I'm just standing where it's safe. That's all you do. And then once I know that I'm safe, then I attack. Sometimes we make mistakes, we're not perfect, but I'm also trying to deal as much damage as I can for them. So if I take a little damage, like I have a lot of health, it's not really a big concern to me. Just keep attacking on my staff cannon right now, so that the fight doesn't last so long for them, so that they had more tile space, because we're about to end up on the last row here. And we're going to be done right by the time we make it to the last row, which is where they likely would have ended up dying, because it's a lot harder to avoid the attacks on the last row. But you can do it if you practice. And on that note of Dad, I'll leave you with some words from your dad. So this passage here is from 1 Peter 5. And it's verse 2 to, well, we'll see, because I'm actually going to end up reading past where I thought I was. So, shepherd the flock of God that is among you, exercising oversight, not under compulsion, but willingly, as God would have you, not for shameful gain, but eagerly, not domineering over those in your charge, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the unfading crown of glory. Likewise, you who are younger, be subject to the elders. Clothe yourselves, all of you, with humility toward one another, for God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you, casting all your anxieties on him, because he cares for you. Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Resist him, firm in your faith, knowing that the same kinds of suffering are being experienced by your brotherhood throughout the world. And after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace, who has called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. To him be the dominion forever and ever. Amen. God bless. On servant out.